The engineers at Airbnb have put together this really nice JavaScript style guide that shows you how to write ES6 in a way that is consistent across all of your projects. So it does things like tells you to use const and when to use let and how to write your if statements and where to use semicolons and etc. All that information. And the ESLint file is sort of the enforcement of this actual style guide. So what a lot of people do is they adopt the Airbnb style of coding, and then they'll sort of just use their own settings on top of it. And that's exactly what we're going to do here today. We're going to implement the Airbnb style guide, and then we're going to sort of go through and pick off little things where we believe that our style differs a little bit. So you want to go to github.com/Airbnb/JavaScript, click on packages, click on ESLint config Airbnb, and it's going to show us how it actually works. So to install someone else's style guide, you can go to your ESLint RC, and instead of extending the ESLint recommended, we're going to extend the Airbnb. Now I'm going to show you what happens if we just change it to that. Go back to our console here and run ESLint against it. It's going to give us an error here, cannot find module ESLint config Airbnb. Why can't we do that? Because we haven't yet actually installed it. Now, you can install this locally to your project if you only need it on one project. But since I like to use it on every single project that I'm working on, I like to install it globally. Now, there's some install instructions right here. And what I like to tell people to do is just go ahead and copy those install instructions and paste them into here. Then there's a few things. It's going to install ESLint for us. We already have that, don't need it. We need the accessibility JSX plugin. If you aren't writing React, you still need to install that, just because all of these things here are what are called peer dependencies for ESLint, and it needs to have them all installed for us. So we get ESLint Airbnb config, we get the import plugin, we get the React and the JSX accessibility one. Next, we want to install this globally. So change --save dev to -g. And go ahead and just copy and paste that right into your terminal here. Again, if you are running a computer where you've not yet fixed your npm, you might have to type sudo and then paste in npm install. It's going to ask you for your password. You can type it in. You won't see anything, but it'll work. And then just give it a second while it goes ahead and installs all of these elements. And if that has worked properly, we should now be able to say ESLint bad code, and it's going to tell us all kinds of new errors that has been happening with our actual code right here. So let's go through them a couple. So first of all, there are a whole bunch of errors that have to do with spacing. A space is required, a space is required. And those are just such minor little things that ESLint will actually fix them immediately for you. So right here, I have this space where I shouldn't have done it. And I could go one by one and fix them all. However, ESLint provides a -- fix option. So we can say ESLint bad code --fix. And what it does, whoa, see, it went from 12 problems down to 2 problems. And I go back to this code and you see that it just refreshed itself there. So it's going to fix almost all of those little spacing issues for us. Now we've got 2 other problems here that are actually running. First of all, unexpected var, use let or const instead. So that's on line 1. Go back up here. So I'm looking at this. I said var weather equals new promise. So I'm not going to be using var. Should I use let or should I use const? Now the question here is, will I ever reassign weather? Does it need to update itself, or is it always going to hold this weather promise? And in the case of us, we're always going to be holding the weather promise. So we'll use const. Good. Going to give that a save and rerun it. One more error, unexpected block statement surrounding arrow body. And this is the arrow body style. Now, you may not actually know like what is the problem here. Let's go check it out. Line 25, it's telling us unexpected block. That's this thing right here, surrounding arrow body style. And it actually doesn't tell us what the issue is. The issue here is that we have a block statement, and then all that block is doing is returning. So what it actually should be telling us is that you should use the implicit return if all that you're going to be doing is opening up a block and returning one thing from it. So let's go look up arrow body style. Go and read the docs here. Arrow functions have 2 formats. They may be defined with a block or with a single expression. So it shows us some examples of when you wouldn't want to do it. and when you would want to use it. So, okay, interesting. I like that error, so I'm going to not turn it off in here, but I'm going to actually go ahead and fix that myself. So we don't need a block here. Don't need this return. We don't need the opening block. Now, this is going to immediately return promises.all, give that a save. Now we'll run back to our terminal and rerun ESLint. And it doesn't, it should like celebrate or something and tell you that you did a good job, but it's simply just like, yeah, of course you did a good job. So it's working for us. There we go. So far, we've been working with a local.eslint.rc file, and that means that we have an ESLint file for every single project that we work on. That can be really handy when you have different coding styles amongst different projects or different teams that you work with. However, it's also helpful to have a global ESLint.rc file, which if you do not have an ESLint file present anywhere inside of your project, it's going to use your global one as sort of a default. And I really like to do that so I don't have to create an ESLint file for every single project, or I have one that I can copy paste into new projects that I'm going to put up to GitHub and expect others to follow that coding style. So I'm going to open up my global one, and it lives in your home directory. What's your home directory? Your home directory is tilde, and that is the folder by your username on your computer. In Windows, it's going to be under C, users, and then your username. So if you do not have one, you can do touch tilde /.eslint.rc. If you already do have one, you can just open it up in your editor. And I'm going to show you exactly what is inside of mine. So I've been extending Airbnb just like we have in here. I've work in the browser, Node, and sometimes I use jQuery, so I've turned all of those on. Then I have all of these rules that I've been working with. Now, I take all of the rules from Airbnb, and then these are the ones where I don't necessarily agree 100% with Airbnb's implementation. So these are just the ones that I've sort of taken over. So let's take a look at one, comma dangle. I've turned that off. If I write some code right here, and I'd say like const west equals open up an object, and I say age is 100 and cool is true, and I give that a save, and let's try to ESLint our bad code again. It's going to yell at us a whole bunch of stuff. First of all, no unused vars. That's good because I created a variable and haven't yet used that. That's actually one that I have turned to a warning in my regular ESLint right here. No unused vars, because I say, yeah, I should know when I don't use a var, but often I'm coding and like I'm not done my application yet and it's already yelling at me for my errors. So what I would do is I turn that to an actual warning. So let me head to my local ESLint here and I'll say no unused vars. That's going to be a 1, which is a warning. And I rerun this, and now it's just warning me instead of actually making an error. So back to this comma dangle here. What is the actual error? Sometimes people will say that you should absolutely always put a comma, even if you don't have another line. That's because if you have checked something into Git, let's say that was my Git status right now, and then I add a new line like dog is Snickers, you'll know that I just modified that line and this line when I really just wanted to add this one line. So people will always put that dangling comma on the end, and I actually generally agree with that, but I don't use it every single time, and I find it to be a bit of a pain that it errors out on me. So I've turned it off in my ESLint with the comma dangle here. You might see this where people pass an array instead of just a 0, 1, or 2. And this is where you can pass options. Some of these options here have the ability to pass things as needed, props. In this case, I said no unused vars except when the variable name is res, next, or error. And where is that helpful for me? I write a lot of Node.js where I'll do something like this. app.get/accounts, and then I'll run a function here, which is like request and response. And I might be doing something, and also maybe pass next. I like to set up all my routes like that. And I might not necessarily use res or next, but I like to have them there in case I need to use them again. And in this case, it's going to yell at me that I haven't yet used res or next. So what I've done is I've set them to simply just give me a warning when I haven't used a variable. However, if I use res next or anything that starts with error, then don't worry about it at all. Now, I'm not going to sit here and go through every single rule in all of ESLint and sort of explain what you should and shouldn't use. What I honestly think that you should do is start with Airbnb and just start writing code. And over the next like couple days, what's going to happen is you're going to trip over errors and you're going to say, why is that error there? Go ahead and go to the ESLint docs, research it, see if it's actually a rule that makes sense for you and your team. If it is, make sure you keep it in your rules. If it doesn't, take it out of your rules or set it to warn instead of actual error. A lot of times people ask me, hey, Wes, can I just take your ESLint? And I think that is okay. However, I maybe even prefer that you just start with nothing and just learn and build your own as you start to go through this.